Welcome back to On the Mind. I am Austin.
I am Duncan.
I am Bryce.
It's weird that we're all three together again. It's been quite the hiatus for our
Look
group
who's
efforts.
back again.
Okay, that's all we need.
I will not sing "The Boys are Back in Town," but I just want you guys to think it in your heads.
I think Bryce was quoting Eminem.
I was.
Okay, just
was
making
quoting
sure.
We've been
Thin
doing lots
Lizzy.
of singing before you guys started listening. Doing Do Re Mi. What was the other one? Oh,
TLC.
TLC.
Yeah. Well, okay. We're getting off topic again.
Right
Let's go
away.
ahead and talk about Puerto Rico. Actually, it's a U.S. island. It's our territory, and there are 3.6 million citizens on that island. It has just been ravaged by 2 hurricanes before those hurricanes hit Florida. So, Duncan, our local Duncan, please give us some background here. We just so unjustly need it.
Okay, so in terms of the Puerto Rican crisis, what we're looking at is kind of an interesting, not to make a pun here, perfect storm of events. 2 substantially strong hurricanes hit this island in quick succession, more or less full on. The other thing that you have to look at is the island, despite being tropical and despite being in the path of hurricanes historically, has not made a lot of investment into the type of infrastructure that stands up well against these sorts of storms. So it was sort of a perfect alignment of the worst possible conditions actually taking place on the island with infrastructure that was not particularly well set up in order to guard against that. So now what we have, it's very difficult to say exactly how much damage has been done. In fact, officials are still working on getting that estimate put together. The fact of the matter is that billions upon billions of dollars are going to be spent in trying to recover from this calamity. At the moment, the island effectively has no infrastructure in terms of electricity. I get the idea that quite a lot of the water supply has been cut off, just damaged pipes and stations and that sort of thing. There doesn't seem to be much in the line of remaining communications infrastructure on the island. So the thing is, at this point, this is not only the state right now, this is probably going to be the state of things on Puerto Rico for a considerably long period of time, since we're talking about almost a complete overhaul of the previous, at least electrical infrastructure.
So that being said, do you think that, and this is moving on to our next phase, I'm going to ask both of you your basic stances on this. What do you think the failings were here? Do you think we need to add preventative measures into building codes? What's your go ahead? And include the response from the mainland.
So, okay, this is one of those situations where occasionally you just have to look at the world and say, even in this remarkably technological age in which we live, there are still just a few things you cannot fully control for. And things like earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, major natural disasters simply do fall into that category. Given the path of these 2 hurricanes, no amount of prevention would have fully mitigated this. There's also an economic question here because, of course, the amount of infrastructure spending that would have been necessary in order to really safeguard the infrastructure there would have been colossal. Now, they're looking at that reality anyway at this point because of the costs of putting back together their infrastructure. And, it's entirely possible that 20 years down the line, Puerto Rico, as odd as it may seem to think about this, may actually be a little bit better off for this happening because this has at least forced them to look at modernizing their infrastructure. So there are perhaps some shadow benefits to this. As far as the response from the mainland, again, this comes down to how much can you really control for things like hurricanes, especially when you have hurricanes like Irma and Maria that have very broad paths that hit a lot of things that hit the mainland specifically. It comes down to a matter of resource allocation. Now, given the status of Puerto Rico as a territory of the United States, do I think they are entitled, as any state would be, to the federal funding that we come to fully expect in places like Texas, hit by Harvey, or Florida is hit by Irma? Yeah, I do. I think that there is a certain degree of rationale for that. But with that said, I come back to this over and over again that no amount of prevention could really have mitigated this all that much.
All right, Bryce, I'm going to give you the same question.
Oh man.
What's your basic stance here? How do you feel? Should there have been preventative measures on the books? Do you think they need to add them now? What's your overall view here, and include response from the mainland?
Well, I always believe that preventative measures should be taking place, not just there in Puerto Rico, but even, say, in California. There's a huge issue right now with should they update a lot of the older buildings there. If they were to have, say, an earthquake, there's a good chance that there would be a lot of fires, destroying a lot of more property that the earthquake didn't quite finish off. It's an expensive thing to fix, and when exactly do you do it? And then right now with the United States being in so much debt, and then also Puerto Rico isn't doing very well off economically either. It's a hard call to make. So, but ultimately, you end up spending more in the long run.
Right.
Look at what happened. So I actually don't know a whole lot about Puerto Rico or their relationship to the United States. I just know that they pay lots of taxes and receive very little benefits from the United States, being that they are not one of the United States.
All right, so I will say that for my overall stance, that I think that with how their numbers, populace-wise, they definitely have the right to petition to become a state. 3.6 million is way above the amount needed to be, more than a U.S. territory, as was mandated in, was it the Constitution? The Constitution. I figured they might have chartered that afterwards. I wasn't sure. Anyway, I will say that the Senator Marco Rubio has done a great job responding to this and bringing attention to it. And also the creator of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's also done a great job supporting this. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because my stance here is I would like to see this responded just like it was a regular state. That being said, it's going to be harder because they're not on the mainland to transport materials over there. So that's going to be part of the cost. I know that they haven't received all the aid they've asked for yet, but that might not be abnormal, seeing as the mainland has been hit by quite a bit as well. So we're going to move on. And
can I add one more thing?
Is it small?
It is small.
Okay.
So, just a reminder for those of you who may not have thought of this, Puerto Rico right now does not have the resources to get back on its feet on its own. Duncan said it'll be a long time. If they get no help, it'll be maybe forever.
So
potentially.
We can maybe research some places where you can donate if you want to that are safe. I'm sure that if you looked at Marco Rubio's Twitter page or Lin-Manuel Miranda's Twitter page, or
I've also seen occasionally Facebook will actually put a header on top of your newsfeed that will link to a vetted donation page for certain charitable causes. I have seen those for Puerto Rico over the past couple of days. So from all of us here at On the Mind, we would encourage you to give if you can.
If you're in a financial situation where you can. Don't
Now,
overextend yourself.
If you're uncomfortable or unable to donate money, some other things that they need are canned goods and even things such as flip-flops, toothbrushes, toothpaste.
Basic necessities.
Yes. Flip-flops because they can't wear a lot of shoes with water damage and most of their shoes were destroyed.
Okay. So we're going to move on to something that Duncan likes to talk about. The economic costs and implications of what just happened in Puerto Rico. Well, that's not the specific topic. Duncan just loves economics in totality.
I love economics.
So, yeah, tell me.
It tickles him.
You briefly touched on this, but feel free to go in a little depth here. We still got a decent amount of time.
Sure. I mean, as far as the economic costs that are going to be involved here, we're talking about not just, people look at infrastructure spending and they think, well, what do the materials cost? And in Puerto Rico's case, as you already touched on, the materials are going to be rather expensive because there's going to be a transport cost built into that. You're also going to be talking about trying to build state-of-the-art, maybe not state-of-the-art, but certainly modernized infrastructure on an island whose workforce up to this point has been largely more adept at keeping older infrastructure running, which in many ways is a skill in and of itself. Which, this could lead to some substantial labor costs, either to train the populace their existing infrastructure that no longer, exists, or to bring in outside labor. So again, there are some special situations that exist within this. You have to look at really is how do you do a short, medium, and long term plan for this? Because of course, short term, you need to get the island back up and working. Because of course, as we all know, the basic tenet of economics is that you need to be able to do productive work, and the island needs to be able to get back to that on some level. So, short term, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of proprietary infrastructure, specifically for businesses, so things like generators run on gasoline, or very simplified water delivery systems. Medium term, you'd want to see what of the old infrastructure is salvageable, be repaired, get major population centers back online, etc. And then in the long term, what you'd want to see is not only a replacement of what was irrevocably damaged, but also perhaps updates in what was repaired in the medium term. So I think that's probably the three stages of what we're looking at over the course of really no one knows how long, because there's no final estimate of how much damage was done, how long this is going to take, what the material costs are going to be.
What's the chances, and this is kind of an economic thing I'll also mention in Bryce's section, what are the chances of a mass migration here?
That is a really good question, and one that is very difficult to answer. On the one hand, there are pressures that would tend to lead to a migration. People are going to, for example, have a much easier time finding work on the mainland than they would in Puerto Rico for the foreseeable future. On the other hand, there is also going to be a certain countertide to that, because there is going to be new spending going on the island. There's going to be the infrastructure construction. Presumably, you're going to have...
and this is the only reason I ask is I liken this to Haiti, minus the fact that Haiti isn't a U.S. territory.
Right.
So the only reason that the counter pressure is there is because it is a U.S. territory.
In a sense, yes. The other thing you have to look at is how well Puerto Rico deals with this. I mean, Haiti was never an economically sound island. It did not function particularly well as an economy. The Puerto Ricans have an opportunity in front of them. I think what they should be trying to do, actually, is to bring in private business. I think they should be encouraging investment rather than simply government infrastructure spending. Because if you can bring in businesses that are willing to invest in the island, you can offset some of those costs, and you can put the expertise, the workforce that those businesses can possibly bring with them to work on these projects. So I think that would actually be a worthwhile endeavor.
All right, I would have liked to have dug more into this. I believe there is a territory that's being under hawkish investment, and I can't remember which one it is, so I can't accurately ask you. So we're going to move on to the social costs and implications, and guess who gets to run this section?
Is that me?
It is you.
That's you.
So what are the social costs here? What are we sacrificing here? What's to gain here? What do you think?
Well,
depending on, let's say that they don't get all the aid that they request, what do you think? How are people going to react?
I think the people of the United States very well might pressure their senators and their representatives to push to make Puerto Rico a state. I can't see that realistically happening, but it's a possibility. Exactly as Duncan said, I think businesses might try to invest in Puerto Rico. It's kind of a bittersweet moment. Bitter because many people died and almost everybody lost their homes and jobs. But sweet because, as he said, it's an opportunity for them to create something better than what they had. And it'll take a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of help, but it could happen.
Okay.
Hopefully it does.
So I guess we're moving on, and I like the streamlined format, by the way. I really do. Any closing statements? Anything extra you wanted to add on?
I think I'm good.
Really?
No, I'm good as well.
All right. Well, I really hope that Puerto Rico does manage to bounce back from this. I don't think that anyone would say. I hope they all just get to sit there in the soggy, water of their homes and just sit there for the rest of their lives. I really want them to recover. So we're gonna hopefully put that link to a safe donation site. We'll try to keep you updated on this situation. If you want to hear more, let us know. Also, we're going to start doing a viewer Q&A. If you want to submit a question, we'll try to give you as best an answer as we can. No promises on quality.
Didn't we do that already?
We tried, but we're doing a new format, and now we actually have a dedicated time slot for it.
Okay.
So, yeah. We're running well and within time limit, guys. We did it. We're finally in a format that's predictable. Can you believe it? It only took us, a year and a quarter? All right. So that's all that's on the mind. I'm Austin.
I'm Duncan.
I'm Bryce.
Thank you and good night.